I think we're live.
We're live.
Well, we've got a great conversation here and a live recording of the Accounting Flow podcast. So this is available on live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, what have you, and then will also be published on the podcast on Spotify and Apple and all those channels as well. But today we are blessed to have Mr. Timothy Wingate Jr. here, who's the founder of GNF and Timothy, I'd love for you to give a brief overview of your firm, what you're doing, and how you're doing it.
Yeah, we are specialized in the area of construction. So we focus on construction clients solely. And we've been doing, the firm has been around for 8 years. And my dad has been in construction all his life. And so I didn't start off as a construction accounting firm. I kind of converted to a construction accounting firm when I found out that I needed to streamline some processes and make it easy for my firm to grow. And construction was just a low hanging fruit for me because I knew the language. My dad worked in it for years, been around it for a long time. And I knew that I could serve this underserved population very well.
Yeah. So it's in your blood.
It's in my blood.
That's awesome. All right. So for benefit of the audience, so you've been around for 8 years, construction. What services do you offer to the construction clients?
Yeah, so we provide like the whole back office suite of services for them. So we're doing integrations, making sure that we can integrate all of their tech, and then we provide bookkeeping and accounting services to them. Then we also provide the tax preparation services as well, and
Okay.
tax advisory, and there's advisory services altogether because I'm actually advising them like on operational things too. So it's pretty cool, really
Okay.
cool.
Okay. Very good. And then tell us about your team dynamic today.
Yeah, so we're a team of don't have me what four? Yeah, so we got two bookkeepers, really smart people. I mean, they're the best. Melissa and Gabe, and then we have my all-star virtual assistant, Becky. Becky is a rock star. She gets things going for us, supports the whole team, and then we have my seasonal tax preparer, which is Ashley, and Ashley does a phenomenal job with all the individual clients that we serve during tax season. And so that makes up our team. And then of course we got our extended team, which is our social media marker, which I'm sure he's probably tuned in live here, Alan. And Alan, he's based in Georgia, and he's been working with us for the last 4 or 5 years now. So
Nice.
yeah, great team.
Okay, good. Shout out to Alan on the social
Yeah.
media side of things. That's great. Well, today we're going to have a conversation around how do you gauge the health of your firm? How do you gauge the health of your clients and your team and developing process around that? Um, First, like what comes to mind for you when you're assessing and reviewing the health of the firm? Like what's something that just comes out of that statement?
Yeah, when I think about the health of the firm, I think about the health of my people.
Hmm,
So I say like how are they feeling? Are they
yeah.
feeling overwhelmed? Do they feel like they're missing something, like they need more training? They don't quite have something down packed. And so the way that I capture that information or capture that data, I use a tool called 15.5. So with
Ah,
15.5, it sends out a weekly check-in at the end of the week,
hmm,
and they
okay.
fill that out, and it tells me like out of 1 and 5, like how do you feel? And they'll tell me, and they ask me if they're overwhelmed with anything. Do they need my assistance? So there's a couple questions that are standard that are asked every week, but then I have some questions that change up every month or quarter to give me a little bit more
Okay.
feedback from the team.
All right. So you've already got a system, a tool in place to help gauge feedback and health of the team. I
Yeah,
love how you lead with that because it's so intentional. And when you have a team that's engaged and they're moving the right direction, they're getting the help they need, that results in a better experience for a client.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
so, how long have you had this system in place, 15.5?
15.5 has been in place for at least the last 4 years for sure. It
Wow.
probably go back a little further, but I know for sure we've been doing it for 4 years.
Okay. And has that
Yeah.
resulted in changes on a monthly, quarterly basis? Like, how often do you see feedback coming in from the system that elicits change in management from your side?
Sometimes it has me to change something the next day. you
Ah,
know, because I'm reading something that is concerning for me as a leader. And so I want to bring it to that person's attention right away and see how they, like, if I see someone who says, "Hey, my work load feels like a 9 out of 10," that's concerning, because number one, I'm assessing, all right, should your workload feel like a 9 out of 10 based
yeah.
on what I've given you? Um, and why is it feeling like a 9 out of 10? So
Mm,
let's talk about that, because maybe they are doing things the long way instead of the
yeah.
easier, short, quick way, so those
Yeah.
things help out.
Okay, so that's interesting because internally you have expectations and you're looking at data, you're saying, "Hey, we feel like we've filled up this team member maybe 70% of their total capacity." So you're saying if
Hmm.
they come back to you and say, "Hey, I'm at 90%," well, there's a 20% gap there that needs to be addressed and understand, how can you lean into that employee to help them become more efficient or better understand the workload or rebalance your expectations internally. Is that accurate?
Accurate, spot on, spot
Yeah.
on.
Okay. So when you get this feedback from the team in this system, you said that happens on a monthly basis with the team or weekly?
Weekly, weekly.
Weekly. Okay.
Hmm.
Does that data make its way into employee review process? How do you then take that one step further holistically to say, hey, we're on track, we're moving in the right direction, here's the promotion path, things like that?
Great question. So within the 15.5 tool, you're able to consolidate that data and actually use it for performance evaluation. So we actually use
Yeah.
15.5 to conduct our performance evaluations as well. And I was doing it on a quarterly basis, but now I'm thinking about making that biannual,
Mm,
just because there's a lot of things that moving and shifting, and quarterly it's kind of too quick to see the turnaround. And
right.
so I'm gonna probably scale that back to a biannual evaluation. But definitely I'm going back, and it's so helpful because I don't have to think about what they've done or what I've said, during those weeks. I can just go back
Yeah.
and read and consolidate all that information and put it into an evaluation.
Yeah, okay. I like that a lot. Since we're on the topic of health of the firm as it relates to people, how about for
Mhm.
yourself? How do you gauge the health of people and person of yourself, of making sure you have the right balance of time, the right depth of management so you're not maybe micromanaging, but not too high level? How do you assess that for yourself?
Yeah, for myself, it's all about how much time that I have to spend with my family. You know,
Ah,
if I see a lot of time being taken away from my family, it may be letting me know that, hey, the team is maybe doing something that's not helping me out, enough, and
yeah.
maybe I need to give them more. Maybe it's been a part of me that's been keeping certain things from them, and now I
Mm,
need to just release those things. So that could be the issue. But yeah, it's truly, truly based on just how much time do I have with my family.
yeah.
And if I feel like if there's a lot of time being taken away, then I mean, and what I mean by that, like if I'm working weekends and
Hmm.
Saturdays and Sundays consistently for quite some time, then it throws a it just puts me in a different headspace, and I say
Yeah.
I gotta kind of sit back and just evaluate things and probably release some things.
Man. Your intentionality and the nature of your empathetic leadership is really apparent in terms of how you've prioritized. I can relate a lot to what you're talking about because I similarly evaluate myself in that way. And there are times where you need to lean in, right? There are times where work does get a little bit heavier, and you have to make the right concessions familially. But if the family, the priorities that come before work are a little bit out of sort, it impacts your ability to deliver on the work front. And so
Absolutely.
it sounds, is there anything that you use to track that, or like, how are you evaluating that beyond hours worked on the weekend, let's say?
I look at my schedule. If my
Mm,
schedule is just full, with meetings, and there's actually work that I need to do, and I can't do it. That's one thing.
mm,
The other thing is we have Carbon for our project management system. So
sure.
if I have work items that are, running overdue that I need to, spend some time on, or the team is waiting on me to kind of review and check, then that gives me, some information to say, you know what, things are a little hectic right now, and we got to find the way to kind of break some of this tension.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, when your calendar fills up, when you have a ton of meetings, a ton of responsibilities, a ton of time dedicated to specific tasks throughout the day, it diminishes the white space that you have to contribute to the wellness of others, whether it's your team or family. So I
Absolutely.
like that as a benchmark. Okay, let's shift to the client side of things, right? When
Mhm.
you're looking at and thinking about the health of your firm, do you have a similar type metrics and scores and tracking for client success?
Yeah, so client success, what I realized with clients, sometimes they don't know what success looks like with
Mm,
working with an accounting firm. And so you have to give them those those benchmarks or goals, you know. And so we usually set that up front during our onboarding process to let them know like these are going to be the wins, you
mm,
know, because they don't know what the wins are or what they should
yeah,
be. So we have to tell them what they are and what they should be. So these are going to be the wins. Once we do this, I want you to celebrate with your office, your team. Like you guys got this down pack. Now we can move to the next thing. And
yeah,
so if I can see that the engagement is happening at a high level, because for me, all clients really complain about with accounting firms is being able to communicate in a timely fashion, you know,
oh,
and get information back and forth as quickly as possible. And
yeah,
so once we nail that down, we're communicating with them consistently. You pretty much you have them, you know, because
yeah,
they just want to feel like you're right down the hallway here, you know,
yeah,
and you can be reached and we can, you know, have some dialogue and get some things accomplished. And so
yeah,
we really focus on high level communication and making sure that the client feels the impact of our
mm,
firm through a lot of communication and the right
yeah.
communication. It's just not crazy stuff or random things, but it's the right communication.
Yeah, I like that. So when you think about health of the firm as it relates to client success,
Hmm.
you immediately went to communication within the onboarding process, and
Hmm.
so you're setting the standard at the front of any engagement of here's how we operate, here's what success looks like, and then here's how
Hmm.
you can expect to communicate with us. Can you
Yes.
give me maybe a more tactical example of what success looks like beyond attentive communication for onboarding within your firm?
Yeah, I think it's just hitting, you know, some of the deliverables. You know, every client is different. You know, one client for me is like, hey, right now people are turning in time cards to me by paper.
Mm,
I want to get rid of that. You know, so hey, to get rid of that, we're gonna start you with Gusto, onboard you, get you used to being in the system, get your employees used to being in the system, and then guess what? Now they're gonna start submitting time cards in the time clock system online
mm,
or through their phone app. And now you don't have to worry about collecting that data because what has happened in the past with that particular client is um, cl- uh, the employees will overstate their time,
sure.
you know, and so now we got to kind of go back and say, hold on, 9 hours, 10 hours worked on this day. Let me go back. Now I got to reach back to the supervisor. And it's all because it was just um, a mishap in calculation. You know,
Sure.
they don't know how to calculate time and convert it and all those things. So
Yeah.
those are like the wins. Those are
Yeah.
like that's like a tactical thing. Like we find a problem and we say, okay, how do we solve this and make it easy for the client moving forward so that way
Yeah.
it never feels so cumbersome again. And
Mhm.
that's what we focus on. So we just prioritize that. Like what is the easiest win? And then also what is the win that's gonna like change the nature of their company and business
Yeah.
and where they will never want to go back and operate the same again. And
Yeah.
so we're constantly balancing that.
It's transformation, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're taking them from a legacy approach, an inefficient process. You're introducing new tools, new softwares to help them become more efficient. And
Mhm.
then along that journey, you're communicating, you need to celebrate this. This is a
Yeah.
win. And so
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of those things that often for us as accountants, we're like, oh yeah, we brought a new payroll system. We do that every day. It's easy. But it is monumental change for a client. And that's true advisory. And so when you're gauging success and your team or your clients feel that impact of the changes you created, that's a
Mhm.
huge indicator to you that things are moving well for you to assess the health of the firm.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Because clients don't. You, well, I should say no. Clients will tell you what has really made a difference in their lives,
Yeah.
and sometimes I would say. as high as 80 to 90% of the time, it's not what you thought was going to make a big difference in their life.
It's
Yeah,
true.
so it sometimes it's just that small little thing because it was so tedious. It was such a hard task to manage from their vantage point, that when you came in and introduced a new way to manage that task that was more efficient and saved
Yeah.
them hours of time dedicated to that task, I mean, you have a client for life. You have a
Yeah,
client for life.
yeah. I love that when there's a very tangible outcome of now this takes you 30 minutes. It used to take you 4 hours every month. Like that is really cool to point to. How about in circumstances where it may be a little bit less tangible for a client? And what comes to mind for me is an instance where you maybe have to go clean up the books 12 months in the past in order to have comparable financials moving forward. For
Mhm.
accountants, that's a really big deal, but oftentimes communicating that value prop to a client can be kind of challenging. So, are there ways in which you try to communicate those really small things that they might not understand right out of the gates?
I would tell them, like, you want a budget, right? You want to know how
Mm,
much we should be spending on X amount of things throughout the year.
yeah.
And if you want to start a new QuickBooks file fresh 2025, we're gonna wait a whole year before we can put a budget together,
Mm,
because we don't know how the business is moving. But if we
yeah.
go back and do everything for 2024 and create, and clean up those books, now we have a solid baseline. Now
Yeah.
we have data that we can create a budget for 2025 using the previous year's data, so we can at least know how this thing moves, and you can start to make adjustments. But if
Yeah.
we don't have no data, you got to wait a whole year to get that data.
Yeah. So you're
And some,
you're very quickly. Yeah, go ahead.
and sometimes that just like that's enough. Like, oh yeah, I don't want to wait a whole year for us to have a solid
Yeah.
baseline. Like, no, go ahead and clean that up, and then we can work from there.
Yeah, I think that's a good framework for anybody listening, because you're trying to take this maybe difficult to understand concept from an accounting perspective and translating it to something that's very tactical for the client in terms of here's the output you can expect. Once we get through this process, here's what we'll be working towards that will drive the value to them. So I really like the connectivity between the hard to understand to the here's the tangible output. That's great.
Yeah.
So I want to hit a little bit on niching, because you all have a very specific niche. You serve the construction industry, you know it very well, you developed processes around that. How have you found that niching has enabled your ability to better evaluate the health of the firm? And maybe do you have any comparison to that? Have you not been niched before and niched, or what have you learned throughout niching and how that helps you evaluate?
So before we niche, I can always go back there. If most of us are overachievers, like we want to do things very, very well. We want to be
Yeah.
right. We want the answer to come out, to be the answer that we thought it should be, right? So when I was serving so many different industries, I found that it was very difficult for me to be or a superstar in every industry.
Hmm.
Um, and then I found myself even like having subscriptions to things, or even purchasing other materials to become that superstar, in all these different areas. Just found the cost just driving up that cost, right?
Yeah.
Because I got a subscription for that's going to help me serve the real estate industry. I got a subscription that's going to help me serve the attorneys and the doctors and all these different things. So because I'm trying to gain as much knowledge so that I can talk their language,
Right.
and really be helpful for them. So my life was chaotic.
Hmm.
you know, it was
Yeah.
just complete chaos. And again, going back to the employees, I see that I was making their lives chaotic because they were trying to keep up. And like,
Hmm.
when we bookkeep for this real estate company, it has to be a little different than how we bookkeep for this construction company and
Totally.
all the, so they're trying to keep up. And I found it very hard to scale because it was hard to get someone trained up to be competent in a particular area so that would I can leave them alone and continue to bring more business in.
Yeah.
I found myself doing like a lot of back and forth training, correcting, rework. Um, it was just a lot. So flipping forward to niching made my life easy. Marketing got easy. No Google guy, I just want you to focus on construction ads. I don't
Yeah.
need no tax ads. I don't need these other. No, I just need construction ads. That's it. I
Yeah.
know that we don't have a lot of people in the pool in construction who's, so you're not going to get a lot of leads coming in every month. I understand that, but I only want construction. And then we can
Yeah.
perfect the ads, perfect the language. And that way, when they come in, I know that they're primed up and ready for me.
Yeah.
And so it just made my marketing dollars more streamlined. So I didn't have to worry about that. And then it made the way that I train bookkeepers and accountants that became more streamlined because like these are the 4 systems that I need you to learn and master. That's it.
Yeah.
And this is the process within those systems that I need you to master. And
Yeah.
once you get that, now you can become this person in the firm. And then, because guess what? We're going to need someone to lead the other people, the other team members, the new ones through the same process. And you can be that person. So, and once that happens, now you've just created a new role within the company that was never there.
Yeah.
Because when you're growing a company, all the roles are not already mapped out.
Right.
They start to be created or manifested once the company starts to grow. And so it just made it so much easier. And then I realized that now, since I'm niche, all my study, all my continuing education is on my industry and
Yeah.
this other industry. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So
Yeah.
now I'm just consuming.
Yeah, man. So if anybody's joining right now and hasn't listened to the last 5 minutes, you just heard a masterclass in niching. I love the way that you characterize that, going from a non-niched environment into construction, and how that allowed you and your team to focus, to educate yourself more, to reduce your expenses, and to
Mhm.
provide a better service to the client at the end of the day because you have this focus.
Yeah.
And I suspect that throughout that process, the mental clarity that you received on the health of the firm, because you're very familiar with what you're doing, the clients that you serve, you probably felt a lot better about it at the end of the day
Oh
once
yeah.
you fully transitioned.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it made so much so much more sense. I was able to spend more time with my family because we're talking about the same things with every client.
Hmm.
The same things, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and now clients trust you more because they know that you specialize in a certain area. I always say it like this here: you will never you will always question someone who's just a general practitioner to do heart surgery, but you will never question a heart surgeon to, you know, wake you back up, what I mean, with the
Yeah.
defibrillator or check your blood pressure, or, like, because you know that they can do everything
Hmm.
and they specialize in heart, but you only want that heart surgeon working on your heart. That's
Yep.
it.
Yep.
So I always say I always wanted, because before I became an accountant, this is a quick little nugget here. I actually was pursuing becoming an orthopedic surgeon.
Interesting.
And that was my goal, that was my focus. But when I got into college, my second year, I did an internship, and what changed my mind was the doctor didn't have time for his family.
Mm.
That was big for me
Yeah.
because he said he has to like have a vacation, and like he'll take a month, 30 day vacation to spend time, But to me, to carve out only 30 days out of 365 days of the year was just insane to me. I don't care how much money I was making. And he was making good money, $500,000 a year, great money. But it just wasn't a life for me. I wasn't a life for
Yeah.
me. So that was just a little nugget, that we want to be specialists. I've always wanted to be a specialist, no matter
Hmm.
what career I was seeking when as in my youth. I always wanted to be a specialist.
Yeah. I've seen a number of firms niche really, really well, and you're clearly a great example of that. Yet in practice, you make an analogy to medicine. The generalist doctors still have a big role in the field of
They
medicine,
do.
and yet when you go to that generalist doctor, they're often saying, "Oh, go to this dermatologist, go to the cardiologist, what have you." And personally, as a firm owner myself, I struggle with that because
Mhm.
I love variety. I
Yeah.
love the SaaS revenue model. I love manufacturing. I just love that
Yeah.
just I don't know, talking to different business owners on what pains they're facing. And so I'm absorbing some of your wisdom as you talk about this. But I think
Mhm.
one of the things that you mentioned that is really important to take out is that for me, because I like differentiation, that could also place a big amount of strain on the team. And so you have to
Mhm.
be very cognizant of how you're setting up processes and learning and opportunities for the team in order to serve clients well. And oftentimes that differentiation strategy can be really inhibiting to team success.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Man,
That's
that's
it.
awesome. All right, so we're going to jump into a live reaction session here. We're going to take some tweets and some quotes that have been submitted or pulled out of Tax Twitter and just get an initial reaction on them. So I'm going to share my screen here and jump into that.
Awesome.
Let's see. How about we start here? All right, so Lysandra Everett, also an EA, she says, telling me how much less someone else charged you is not an enticement for me to reduce my rate. It only angers me that someone else doesn't know their worth.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I tell people this all the time. When you think about pricing, think about where you want to spend your time, how how you want to free yourself from your business.
Hmm.
Um, $50 an hour, $50 an hour is not going to free yourself from your business. $100 an hour is not going to free yourself from your business. So you got to think about those things. Like when you run a business is truly a business because it doesn't need you in the day to day.
Yeah.
And you got to think about where you want to be, you know, 10 years, 20 years from now. Is it still in the day to day? You know, if it's not, you need to be pricing yourself accordingly to get
Hmm.
yourself out of the day to day. And that price is going to look different for every firm owner because some firm owners want to provide, free Uber vouchers to their employees every
Hmm.
week. So that's going to require me to charge a higher price because I want to do that versus another
Right.
firm that doesn't want to do that. So you have to think about all the different benefits and things that you want to give your employees and to give yourself, and then say I need to be pricing myself accordingly to achieve those things and to work my way there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You're talking about communicating a value prop too. So, like, if you're providing those Uber vouchers to your team, you do have to price accordingly. However, that doesn't necessarily translate to a value prop to the client. But being able to translate that really well, I think, is super important. And
Hmm.
you see it all the time, right? You got a prospect come in and they say, "Oh, well, my last account was charging me $1,000 a month. Why are you proposing $2,000 a month?" And to bridge that gap can be challenging for accountants sometimes. And I would always say, like, hey, if you're chasing revenue, be very cautious about reducing your rates because of that competition. But
Hmm.
rather, if there is price sensitivity in the sales process, there's always a give and a take here, right? It's like, well, I can reduce
Hmm.
my rates, but also the service is going to change over here. And so
Absolutely.
let's find the
Absolutely.
right balance of what serves clients really well.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time um, putting together my pricing software. So I use Go Proposal for my pricing software, and I spent a ton of time going through all types of scenarios with that software to come up with the pricing model and to
Sure.
make sure that when I meet with a client, they're not debating with me on price. They're debating with my software.
Right.
So my software says that we're gonna be doing 200 transactions a month, servicing 6 accounts, bank accounts, line of credits, fixed assets. Let's plug all this stuff in. Let's see what it spits out.
Yeah.
And when it spits it out, okay. Well, if I want to get that price down, how do I do that? Oh, we could just uncheck this box, and we uncheck it, and then the price changed. Let's see what it changed to.
Hmm.
Boom. You know, it it breaks the tension. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're not debating with you; they're debating with the software, and
Yeah.
the software has been programmed by you. You know,
Yep.
so it has. So you're trusting the software now. You know, you're not gonna get it perfect the first time.
Mhm.
I made probably 4 or 5 versions of the pricing structure because I created pricing and then I did the work. And I realized like,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know what? That wasn't enough.
Yeah.
That wasn't enough. Took too much time. Especially like when it's new services or new things that you're trying out. It's like, nah, we got to change the price on that. And then we'll
Yeah.
get it right next time, and then we'll get the new or sometimes the old clients into the new pricing model the next year or the
Yep.
next quarter, so
Yeah.
it's ways to get it right, but just take time with it, but start with something that's going to help you just kind of be a person who's just delivering the message instead of
Yeah.
being the message.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, you've outlined a very transparent approach to pricing, which I like a lot. And then also alluded to, hey, every new client or new prospect that comes in the door is an opportunity to reprice and to
Mhm.
change things that maybe you made mistakes on in the past. All right,
Yeah.
let's do one more here, a little bit of a funny one. Let me share my screen again. So we've got Matthew Cords, another EA. My tax Twitter timeline confirms it's not just me. There's an epidemic of sending PDFs of spreadsheets. I think it's contagious. Um, do you get PDFs from clients often? PDFs of spreadsheets? How do you intake your data?
I never get PDFs of spreadsheets. I
Woo!
really don't. I guess a lot of times too, because sometimes I'm inviting the client to be a collaborator on a Google
Hmm.
sheet.
Yeah.
So that kind of cuts that out. But then when I send them an Excel spreadsheet, my clients don't send me a PDF back in exchange for the Excel spreadsheet. They're just gonna send me the Excel spreadsheet. But I guess too, we really communicate through a Loom video on how to use the spreadsheet and
Uh,
what we want them to do within the spreadsheet and get it back to us.
Yeah. Oh, I like that a lot. So now
Yeah,
you're introducing a new process to better educate your clients on how to interact with you and how to communicate with you, not just you to them, but how you expect them to communicate with
yeah,
you. That's awesome.
yeah.
I love that. Man, well, this has been a fantastic conversation around measuring the health of your firm and different tactical ways that you can do that for your team, for your clients, for yourself.
Yeah.
Timothy, I'm stoked to have had this conversation with you.
Awesome, man. Roman, thank you for having me, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and then also to reiterate, so construction accounting, Timothy's your guy. If you need people to reach you, what's the best resource for them to get a hold of you or your firm?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is going to my website, gplusf.com. Also, construction.accountant will reroute you there. So that's another one too. But yeah, reach out to me on there. LinkedIn, if you want to like personally talk with me, then LinkedIn Messenger will be the way to get me. And I usually respond within a day or so.
Yeah, and you did tell me right before we launched that you had a great conversation with another firm owner on helping educate them on how to best onboard a client. So I already know you're very gracious with your time and helping others. So would encourage all of you to connect with Timothy on LinkedIn. Hopefully you don't get too many messages that eats into your family time. But again, thanks for hopping on, and we're gonna cut the stream off here.